80% is better in the long run because you'll be able to get more volume in that way. Because if you go 100%, you are bound to burn out. And when you burn out, it can take you like, who knows how long it'll take you to stop being burnt out. So if it's possible to be, instead of having like these roller coaster motions, it should be more constant. And whatever, maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 70%, whatever that constant level is that you're able to maintain in the long run should be what you're sitting at.
How heavy is your creativity? Well, our next guest's creativity is very heavy. That's because they are a stunning designer, concept artist, illustrator, model maker, and software developer. So please welcome Mr. Heavy Poly himself, Vaughan Ling. Vaughan is a household name in entertainment design, thanks to his iconic design sensibility and art history that spans from hard surface design to plein air paintings and lots of stuff in between. This skill set has seen him work in many fields, from toys, video games, his work with Alberto Mielgo on TV and film, and his own individual ventures, which include his development of the digital painting app and movement Heavy Paint. Plenty of stuff to get through with Vaughan in this one, so let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast. So I got a very special guest on today, one of my favorite artists, Vaughan Ling. Welcome, Vaughan.
Thanks, Aaron.
Very much looking forward to speaking with you today. Let's get the pleasantries out the way. If you wouldn't mind just giving the guests a quick lowdown as to who you are and what you do.
Let's see. I'm kind of an artist, kind of an engineer, hybrid person. I started off studying car design way back when in Detroit, and ended up somehow in LA doing animation work for TV and film. And then for the past 5 years or so, I've been working on a drawing program or a painting program. I've always been into the tool side of things, and I like playing with tools and modifying tools, and it's just fun. So that's what I do now. I make a tool, and I get to see people use it and break it and have fun with it, and that's basically what I spend my time on now. Yeah.
So you're talking about Heavy Paint, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. How long's that Heavy Paint? When did that start, and what was the idea for that?
So I was going out painting with this local group here called Warrior Painters. Every weekend we would go out in different spots and sit there with our gouache paint or acrylic or watercolor. And one day I got a phone. It was this little Samsung phone here. I still have it. I still use it with the pen. These ones, the Note phones.
Yeah.
And this was in 2018 or so that I got the phone, I think, or 17. Yeah. And then I was painting a train. We were at a train museum at the side view of a train. And if you just imagine a million little windows in the train, and I was trying to paint like a million little rectangles, but I couldn't really find a tool that could do just what I wanted. Was, if you imagine you start here in the one corner in the top left corner, and you drag to the bottom right corner, and it just like drags out a rectangle for you live. I didn't want it to be like you make a selection tool and then you have to go paint bucket fill it, because that was, 4 clicks or something, and I didn't want to do that. So I went home and I said, okay, let's try to make a rectangle making tool. So I just looked it up online, and that's how it started. And then I was able to draw my train.
What app was it on the Note? Was it the built-in one?
I was trying a bunch of different ones. I won't say any name. I was just trying them and downloading different ones, like using my data. Okay. I'm like, oh crap, I can't find a rectangle tool. but I'm sure there was a rectangle tool out
Cool.
there. I probably just didn't know how to find it. But I don't know. I'm the kind of person that likes to do these little silly projects
Yeah.
anyway, DIY projects. So I was like, oh, it'd be fun to try to make a little rectangle thing, just for that.
And was that like easy? Like, I guess you know coding and you know how to speak computer language. Did that kind of project come easy? Like, did you know exactly what to do, or was that like, okay, I will really
Oh
want this. I
no.
don't know what the hell I'm doing. And how did you even figure out how to make this rectangle tool?
Yeah, I had no idea. So that's the fun of it, right? Is like I don't know. So let's see if we can know. And that was my weekend project. Is drawing the rectangle itself is not hard. It's
Yeah.
you just you just imagine you can think of it in your brain. It's just like top left is x1 y1, and then bottom left is x1 y2. If this corner is y2, so this is x1 x1 y1. This is y
Hmm.
x2 y2. Then what is this corner? This is x1 y2, right? And what is this corner of here? No, I did that wrong. Yeah. This one is x2, y1, right? Does that make
Yep.
sense? If this is
X.
x1, y1. So that's it. And then you just tell the computer to draw those 4 points. And, that was it. The harder part is like, oh, how do we set it up so that it can go onto a phone, for Android in this case? And you have to download the little Android Studio program and then make a little super basic program to draw the rectangle and then just send it to the phone. And I just watched a little, I think it was a Udemy tutorial on how to do that.
Okay.
Very basic stuff. Yeah. So
And that's where it started. Just that desire of a rectangle tool, and then was it like, okay, now I got the rectangle tool? Do I want to try this tool, or did it become this whole new playground or sandbox of like, oh, let's make whatever we want?
yeah, it was like, well, I had in my favorite tools over the years of using all the different painting programs.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones was called Alchemy. I don't know if you remember that one, but
I've
it,
never used it,
it
but I've
was
heard of it.
it's kind of a really experimental, weird program that where you could have like radial symmetry, kaleidoscope patterns when you're drawing,
Yes.
and or you could. It had the lasso fill the tool, which is a thing that I really loved, and then most programs don't have that for some reason, but that's
Yeah.
something that was like the first thing that I was trying to do to make a lasso fill, where that kind of tool is like you're drawing the outline, but it's filling it in as you draw
Hmm.
live instead of having to, draw the selection and fill it with a paint bucket, which I've always hated. So that was the first tool I was trying to make. And the thing is, I didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of screwed it up and I made a different tool instead called fan. It looked like a fan. So all the
Yeah.
points were like going back to the middle to the first point, if that makes sense. So it was like a radial fan around the,
Yeah.
the middle point. And then that became like the signature tool of heavy paint. Like everyone, that's the one
That's actually
unique
true. Yeah. Yeah.
thing, that people know heavy paint for. And it was a mistake, of course, trying to make a lasso. Then I did eventually make a lasso, but that was a lot more complicated actually. And it took a little while longer, but, yeah. So just little by little started, I'm like, okay, what about a stamp tool? Like, just repeating the texture over and over. A line tool. But the basic idea is all the tools follow that idea of everything is live. So you're not having to, draw a selection for the shape and then fill it in. It's just making the shape right away. So you can, um, it's just a little bit more raw and direct, but maybe a little less control over things because you're doing everything live,
Hmm.
um, without masking, I guess.
You mentioned obviously it was like during a time when with warrior painters. Would you say with, I guess, heavy paint right now, is it still got that same kind of vibe and philosophy that you had at that point in time with your painting journey? And was it ever supposed to be like an attachment to what you were doing with warrior painters, or was it always it's supposed to be this other thing.
Well, I think at first it was a lot more involved with warrior painters because I was going out there every weekend and
Mm,
I would see everyone and sometimes I would see people using it and I'd be like, oh, well, yeah. And so it was, and yeah, we would do a lot more community things and be on the Discord all the time, especially in COVID. And people would do like weekly challenges on their Discord, which was cool. And then, but yeah, yeah, I guess we're still, we see each other around. Like I saw them at Lightbox recently, but we're not as involved together anymore.
mm,
'Cause I've been honestly on the weekends lately. I've been going, you know, to either coding meetups or just going out and just working somewhere on my own on the project. I'm basically working all the time on the weekends as well.
sick.
So yeah, I need to get back to painting more this year. I'm hoping because last year was a lot of just like trying to get the thing finished or, the new version of heavy paint.
Mm,
But yeah, trying to keep it raw though. Like I definitely
cool.
realized that the reason why the people like the first version is because it was raw and simple and, that's kind of refreshing. There's plenty of programs that are way, way, way more advanced and have a million features and things, but there's also something nice about things that are simple and little and
Hmm.
don't have everything. So that's what I need to focus on, I guess.
I would attest to that. I've been in and out, and the first time I used it, obviously when you first released, I was like, "Oh, let's check this out." And the way you described it, the rawness of it, that was very evident, but in a very cool way. Like it wasn't like in a limiting way. In weird, at least for me, it was like in a freeing way. Like, okay, this is how it is, and it's literally just focusing on making something and purely that. And it wasn't a case of like being, even though there's tools there, being precious about the tool or like a technique. It was like just get it out, and it actually even helped me with like understanding color a bit more, because rather than like just did you have a color picker first early on?
Oh, no, there was, well, yeah, it had the sliders, RGB
Yeah,
sliders, and that
sliders.
was it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like guess thinking I know which color's supposed to be there, and realizing that, oh no, I don't know anything. So that kind of helped in that regard. Um, so is that why go with that philosophy?
Well, I'll be honest. In the beginning, the sliders is the simplest way to do color because
Uh-huh.
computers already think in RGB. Your screen is already RGB, so it's like a direct line straight to the pixels on your screen. The graphics card thinks in RGB. Everything is set up
Hmm.
for RGB, so it's like that's easy. If you want to do a color box, then you have to do a little bit of math and like figuring out things and converting things. So the RGB was just the beginner noob way to do it. But yeah, but it is nice because that's how paint is. You have to mix your
Hmm.
different colors of paint to come up with a new color, and it's kind of fun to think about it that way. And even though it's not exactly like paint, because it's more of a additive thing. Like things get brighter when you add more sliders together, whereas with paint, it kind of goes the opposite way. It gets darker. But it's fun. It's good to think about things that way. The color
Yeah.
box is a bit of a cheater, although I do like to use it lately. But
What has like I guess the heavy paint journey, has it taught you anything about art that you probably had not known before? Maybe abstractly or even like quite literally.
um, hmm, I think yeah, that's a tough question. What has it taught me? Well, it's taught me about artists. I think that yeah, like just the
Uh,
fact that people like less and people like simple and it's kind of counterintuitive. It's almost like the more things you do, the worse it could become, Like you have to, yeah, limitations can be good. And,
mm,
some people need limitations. Like, sometimes when you let's say you retire and you have nothing to do and you get bored and then you just die, right? You have to have limitations or like a structure, and it's kind of good for humans to have.
When you go do painting, whether it's like at home or outside, do you take a lot of tools with you, or do you keep that simple as well?
Well, nowadays it's just like, oh, here it is, or my iPad. I'll
Yeah.
have my tripod. Sometimes I have this metal tripod that works really well because it's very minimal, and you know, just park the iPad there, and then maybe I also have I have a 1 second. Let me get this. My I have a. Have you ever seen one of these?
What's that?
An umbrella hat.
Oh, okay.
So you can just put this on like this.
Nice.
It's pretty stupid. I don't really use this one that much, but it's fun.
When was the last time you
Anyway,
used it?
I don't know. It's more of a novelty thing. I just like to show
Yeah.
people because it's silly.
um,
um,
like with heavy paint, what has it become? And do you have any plans for it moving forward? Like, what's your relationship with it, if that makes sense? Because it's like, do you still see it as like a software tool, as a personal project, or has it become like this brand or even this entity that is almost no longer yours and it's the users?
um, yeah, I guess it is still pretty tied in with me personally because I'm still working on it all the time. I think if I were to separate more from it, it would have to be like, you know, hiring a few people to work on it and just having a team and um, that kind of a thing. But I think right now it still feels very personal. Maybe that's a
Mm.
good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing,
Mm.
but I am, it's kind of still my baby and I'm still
Mm.
very precious about it. Still haven't got tired of working on it, which is a new thing for me. Um, I,
What, like feeling tired about things?
yeah, I do get, I mean, like we were talking about before, it's
Yeah.
just, I've kind of gone through these different little career moves, and
Uh-huh.
this is the first thing that kind of caught me, and I feel like it could keep me for the rest of my life or whatever,
Wow.
or at least for a long time into the future. But
How long has it been going on for now?
it's been since 2019, or a little bit
Wow.
before 2019. So for
Wow.
me,
For 5 years there.
that's the longest job I've had by far. Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
you mentioned there like it's just purely solo. Like obviously it's a lot of work, clearly, when you do anything meaningful by yourself. Does that ever like do you ever hit like do you ever like burn out from it? Or is it something that you can handle?
Yeah, I've been reading some books about that. Like there's one book by Daigo Saito, I think his name is, that
Okay.
he was a Street Fighter champion, for many, many years. And his book talks about that. And it's just saying like, well, I mean, he's a little bit crazy. As you can, if you read the book, he's a little nuts. He gets very like, you know, sad when he loses. but,
Okay.
but I guess in older age, what he says is you should try to be maybe like 80% instead of 100% all the time, because, and I've heard this from
Mm,
other trainers too, like UFC trainers or just different high level people, that 80% is better in the long run because you'll be able to get more volume in that way. Because if you go 100%, you are bound to burn out. And
yeah.
when you burn out, it can take you like, who knows how long it'll take you stop being burnt out. So if it's possible to be, instead of having like these roller coaster motions, it should be more constant. And
Mm,
whatever, maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 70%, whatever that constant level is that you're able to maintain in the long run should be what you're sitting at. That way you can get more, hours in under the
mm.
curve, I guess, and be able to get farther that way. So yeah, I've
What
been
percent?
okay. I've been trying to keep it like at a sane level
Yeah.
lately, and um, like I do work on the weekends, but maybe once in a while I'll take a day off or just,
Mhm.
do half the day and then whatever. But, I'm not crazy, super duper ultra crazy about it. I'm just trying to, survive and
Yeah.
marathon it out. Um,
Nice.
yeah.
I love it. And what percentage would you say you do things at? Are you like an 80% kind of person, or less or more?
I think in general, I'm pretty chill. Like, yeah, I would say 80%. But the thing that I think is different is that I will continue doing things longer, usually. Like when other people might get bored or be like,
Yeah.
I'm done with this. This is stupid. I'll be like, oh yeah, yeah. I don't get bored. Well, I do get bored sometimes, but you know what I mean. I'll stick with things for longer if I can. So yeah, that's the idea. Is just consistency is,
Mm.
what I'm banking on consistency.
Is that a trait that you've always had? Consistency?
Mm, not really. Like,
Huh?
I don't think I'm definitely not a great student. Well, I guess I'm consistent in some things. Like, yeah, I've always liked to draw and paint and stuff, but uh, I'm kind of a procrastinator. I'm not a great student. I've normally been bad with organization, although I'm getting better with that now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just getting older in general, you have to use your calendar and be on time for
Yes.
things. But, all the general typical artist things where you're sort of a scatterbrain,
Oh,
person. But,
mate.
right.
Procrastination, I think I'm definitely like 100%er in that one. I definitely have a top score in procrastination. Um, does it ever get well, I guess the better of you or the worst of you? Have you ever had procrastination almost like derail you? Or have you seen it as a superpower at times? Because I've kind of had like experience of both.
Interesting. Yeah, you can use it as a tool, right? Like if you're a procrastinator, what you could do is maybe what I like to do is have a little location changes within my day. So I'll say, okay, I need to go over there at 12. So I need to finish something until 12. And then when I go over there, I'll be like, okay, now I can just like sit around and do nothing for a little bit. But then when I need to leave that place and go to the next place, then I'm like, oh shoot. And then in the last, few minutes, you're just like cranking out a crazy amount of stuff. So I think that's good. Like moving around physically for me is nice. Or like
Mm.
I like to ride bike to go work at a cafe or something, and that
Oh, nice.
gets my brain going again, just like physically. That's the other thing that I took me way too long to realize is that your brain is like part of your body, and you have to like use your body to use your brain. It's just kind of
Oh, mate,
stupid
that's so
stuff,
true.
but yeah. Um, so
But I get into
yeah,
the
but
habit of like knowing it's part of my body, getting to a point where like, yeah, I'm looking after it, and then I still neglect it after a while. And that's almost like hyper procrastination, where it's like starts affecting inside your body as opposed to your tasks. So I'm still trying to figure that
mhm,
out.
yeah.
What
Oh,
what's your
wait, I
like? I
was
guess.
curious.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was curious what you were saying about procrastination. How do you like the two sides of it? What do you think?
So very similar to yourself, but I don't move much. It's like shorter movements kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's like I guess in a weird way, it manifests in like multitasking. So like doing a bunch of different things at once, meaning that when one thing kind of gets boring or my brain just can't keep focused, I'll switch to the other task, chip away at that, switch to another task, switch to another task kind of thing. And then slowly kind of all gets done somehow. But then all equally on the flip side, that strategy can quickly fall apart, especially if things don't go smoothly. But what I've found is what it's linked to, as you mentioned about getting older and stuff, is fatigue. Either it's like lack of sleep or physically drained. Sometimes it's even like a culmination of like a month or a couple of weeks worth of like just events or like just being super busy or whatever. And then eventually it's like running out of steam. And then when you run out of steam and you try and do stuff, but then you still got that like procrastination switch still permanently stuck on, then it
Mm,
kind of fall apart. So yeah, it's
mm.
kind of like been recognizing the steps of where I'm at today, if that makes sense, and being
Yeah,
able to acknowledge that, okay, no matter how hard I try, I'm going to be at 30% today, and then do what's
yeah,
in that 30% category, and
yeah.
then yeah, work up that way.
That's exactly what they were talking about in those books too, where you have to be good at diagnosing yourself. Like, what is
Yes.
your state right now? Because you can, like, your brain wants to do more than what your body can do sometimes. And if your brain is like beating yourself up, like, oh, why can't you do this? Come on, come on. But it's just your body is not able physically. So then
Yeah.
you have to listen you have to listen to what's happening and keep an eye out on yourself and
And
pay attention.
I'm kind of learning, I guess, how I used to be when I was younger with my daughter, my eldest. She's way smarter than me, but she's also a better procrastinator than me as well. And kind of seeing like how it manifests in her. And yeah, she does the same kind of like things of like trying to avoid certain things and stuff. So it's been interesting trying to like a pro procrastinator trying to coach it out of someone who's someone better than me. So that's a nice fun adventure that's happening right now.
Oh
Um,
man. Uh,
when did you have that? Like, I like what you mentioned there, like about diagnosing yourself, and I guess basically just recognizing it yourself and understanding how you work, so to speak, and decoding yourself. When did you do that to yourself, or when did you realize you had to? If that makes sense.
Um, well, I went through my phase of like working all through the night every day and sleeping later and later and my schedule going flipping upside down until the point where I went out for a walk one night and in my neighborhood and I live by the Rose Bowl by Art Center in LA, and I went to the Rose Bowl to walk, and I saw this old lady, and she's like, "Oh, good morning, young man," and I was like, "Wow, it is morning." And then I realized, okay, maybe I need to reel this back in and stop doing this
Oh man! And have
and
you
be a
changed
be a
since?
normal food. Yeah, I think I have a more regular schedule now, which is I think nice. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing where like in different phases of your life, you have different modes of working.
Mm,
When you're younger, you can like your body can handle like crazy whatever, staying up all night and just being
yeah,
stupid, and it's kind of fun to do that too. That's a tough question too, though, because work-life balance is such an important thing now, and I think like they probably teach you to not do that kind of thing
yeah.
nowadays. Like it's not, I guess it's not really healthy. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I definitely was a little more hardcore when I was in that period. But so I'm like slowly, um, coming off of that and trying to be more consistent versus, hardcore.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, mate. It's similar adventures, similar stories as well. I think the longest stretch I did was 3 days straight awake. I'd say straight. I had probably like 15-minute naps in between, which felt like heaven when they happened. But yeah, that I've never been able to do more than that ever since, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
mentioned being hardcore. Was that like you just so deep into your pursuit, or was it a time management thing?
Maybe both. Maybe both. Um, yeah, I think um, when I was younger, I had more like I was like, oh yeah, I want to conquer the world. I want to be like the
Yeah.
best of the best. I want to be like world class. Blah blah blah. I don't know. Maybe it's just something that I had in me from you know from my mom and my parents. I don't know,
Mm.
but that's just how I was. But I think I'm a little bit more chill about that now. I'm like, okay, I can see, you know, there's a lot of younger talent coming up, and they've got the mantle now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work on my tool now. I'm not gonna
Nice,
like
nice.
this is my new calling, I guess.
Would you change anything though about your journey? Obviously, obviously you have changed. Would you rechange any steps? At least more like like the not decisions, but like work life balance or the way you used to work and things like that, or not?
Good question. Um, yeah, it would have been interesting to see how I would have been if I had figured out some of these things earlier.
Mm.
Um, I think though in school at least it's good to really push yourself because that's what you're there for. It's like, you know, it's the gauntlet, it's the test. You're just trying to see what you are capable of, or it's like a boot camp, right? It's like you just want to push yourself and see what you're made of. It's kind
Yeah.
of fun in that way, even though it's painful and it sucks, but it's a fun adventure to see, what your limits are every once in a while, but not all the time though. Yeah.
When did I guess your creative journey start? Because obviously, no, like even though I'm sure you're the same as well. Like you'd see what you're doing now is creative. Obviously, like building an app and building a software tool is very different from like designing spaceships and cars, for example. When did your creative journey begin? And did it even begin, or did it just kind of like emerge?
I think I got very lucky. Like a lot of people, I like to draw when I was little in school, and
Mm,
then um, my mom is a special person. She she was very involved in my school and stuff, and she kind of dragged me to this a magnet fair with these different schools in Florida, in Miami, where I grew up. And there was one table that had a school called Dash, or Design and Architecture Senior High, and they had fashion design, they had like graphic design, industrial design,
mm,
and film, and a few other things. And I was like, "What is this? This doesn't make it. What the heck is industrial design even?" And then the person at the booth was like, "Oh, a toothbrush, um, MP3 player. If anyone
yeah.
remembers what MP3 players are,
Of course.
like,
Yes.
somebody has to design those, and like they don't just
Yeah.
pop out of thin air. So I'm like, really? Oh, wait, I never even thought like a person had to draw the toothbrush,
Yeah.
and the same with like animation. People don't like you don't even think that that's a job. It just magically comes from the Disney magic land.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so uh, yeah, and then I went there for
How old are you then when you went
that was
there?
interesting. That was a high school, so I was like 13 to
Ah.
17, I think, right? And that was interesting because that was a crazy decision for me and my parents. So shout out to my parents because the school it's a public school, but it was like 2.5 hour commute to get there
Wow.
just to get there, and then
Yeah.
another two and a
Yeah.
half to get. It was ridiculous.
And is that on a
And
good day?
so
And with traffic, it could be worse, or is it consistently two
there's
and a half
no good
hours?
day. There's no good day.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
always a bad day because
Right.
it's a bus and then a
Right.
train, another bus, and
Nice.
so yeah, I'm very thankful that my parents let me go there because it would have been much easier for me to just go to the school like down the street.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then that school was great because they taught us about design
Mm.
and painting, and we had figure drawing and everything. So that was kind of like this really lucky head start that I got. and they also worked us like crazy. I don't know if
Okay.
they still do, but it like they were making kids cry in class, and like it was brutal. It was like boot camp,
How
definitely.
are they making kids cry?
They were like, we put our homework, our paintings up on the wall, and then the teacher's like, hey
Got the
Vaughn,
whip out and
take that down. Like,
okay.
take down that
Wow.
painting. And I'm like, fuck. And, or he would get paintings and literally crumple them up and like throw them in the trash.
Was it that one teacher? Or was it like the whole, like, I
No,
guess,
other teachers too.
okay. So it's a cultural
It's not,
thing.
it's a thing. Yeah. But
Okay.
he was probably the
Wow.
most, he was famous for making people,
Oh man.
but, yeah.
And so when you're in that kind of environment, it's a weird question. I guess maybe it's the wrong way to phrase it. Like, did you enjoy the fact that there was like this, level that you had to kind of get to?
Yes.
Basically,
Ev-
not to get
ev-
your work crumpled.
you can ask anyone that went to that school. It's like one of the best things that we have in our life because it was like,
Wow.
it taught us how to be resilient and to handle stuff and do things. And,
Mm,
you know, and we're all kids too. It's just like, I guess it's thinking back, it's kind of severe,
yeah.
but also like, I think people underestimate how capable kids can be too. Like if they put their minds
Mhm.
to something, or, you know, like if they're training and they're doing sports or something, they can achieve stuff. Even, when they're young.
And so I guess like that was more early on. There's a lot more work screwed up and thrown in the bin. Towards the end, was less work screwed up, or was still getting destroyed every single day?
Well, I mean, some people take longer to learn than others. Yeah.
Hmm.
There's still, you know, it takes a lifetime to learn this stuff sometimes. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
you
true.
know,
That's true.
being responsible, doing your work, doing things on time, blah, blah, blah. Just the basics, you know? That's what they were trying to instill in us is like, you know,
Mm.
just be responsible, do what you say you're going to do.
Mm.
Uh, manage your time, blah, blah, blah. So yeah.
And would you say like you took that forward with you in your career going forward, or did it kind of like manifest into something else? Because like sometimes, like for example, you get that kind of like, I guess you let's call it a very strict way of being taught. It just reminds me of the film Whiplash, and also some of my experiences growing up as well. But then not always do you kind of just verbatim, okay, that's how I was taught. I'm going to exist in that way. Like sometimes it can transform into something else, but the energy is still the same. If that makes sense. How did it work for you?
Yeah. Well, I will say, I, I think I'm a bit softer in nature. I'm
Hmm.
not very, I'm not going to make someone cry if I'm teaching. I
Yeah,
have taught a bunch and I've never made anyone cry. If anything,
cool.
I've been a little bit, I've been too soft maybe because
Right.
it's hard to do. I think it's like a tough love is a very difficult thing to do because you don't want to
Hmm.
be the bad guy. You want to be nice to everyone, but sometimes people need to be, um, you know, shown some tough love in order to
Hmm.
improve themselves. So that's a very tough thing. And I'm very appreciative that the teachers did the tough thing for us because if they were too soft on us, we would have turned into pudding or something, you know? So I'm happy for it. But yeah, me myself, I'm not as hard on myself anymore. Like I still try to do things, but I'm not like killing myself over stuff
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
was maybe back then, under threat of, you know, like I don't want to disappoint the the class or something like that, you know. Now it's
So
like
I
I don't
guess
want to disappoint the heavy paint people.
so I guess this question could be as kind of like two answers. You mentioned there like pushing yourself to your limit. I'm sure you got stories of like when you push yourself and in one case it got you exactly what you're looking for, maybe more. And in another case, it just fell flat on its face and almost that approach kind of didn't let that whatever that endeavor was succeed. Would you mind sharing some anecdotes based on that?
Yeah, well, we were talking about this earlier, right? The whole car design thing. So yeah, as you know, Aaron, in school for automotive design, it's very well, kind of a cutthroat environment. People
Mhm.
are all competing very hard for a limited amount of jobs. So it's tough. And we're thinking about it all day, thinking about cars. We're going to lunch, dinner, breakfast with our classmates and like talking about cars all day and design and blah, blah, blah. And like that's just your whole life and it's consuming you and you're just drawing until you fall asleep every night. And that's like our whole dream, right? And then at least at my school, they had to cut the class in half every year, which was even more scary. So we
Yeah.
didn't want the axe to happen on us, but we knew half of us would be gone. So yeah, that did eventually happen to me, and it was kind of like it was pretty. It's it's almost like you get the letter and you read it and you're like okay, and then you have this out of body experience like oh my god, what am I supposed to do? Or like you're just numb almost when you see it, and then um, but then life goes on and then keep going, doing other things. Uh, and so somehow after that whole car thing where I got cut, I ended up doing animation stuff instead or toy stuff actually. So I got to do some
Okay.
toy cars at Mattel, and that was like kind of my transition into other things. You know, it's not a real
Mm.
car, but it's a toy car at least, and then I can go from there. And it was pretty fun actually, and the world didn't end, and I yeah, life goes on. It's fine.
I remember that from your industry workshops talk, and when you said those things, like we was talking before the call, it was like this guy's just basically just highlighting the same kind of milestones that I kind of hit as well, and experiences and all sorts. And at that point in time, I was kind of like, I didn't feel like the world had ended, but I was in that space of like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do next, kind of thing. But then
Yeah.
hearing your talk showing that there is a pathway, and also reading in between the lines, because obviously, going off a bit of a tangent here, we all present things, we all talk things, we all like say things. Not necessarily that's like 100% what happens, just like I guess the surface level of like whatever it is kind of thing. Um, but you could tell with the way you explained your journey and everything, I was like, no, this guy is definitely enjoying it and having a fulfilled career out of it as well. And that kind of like just made me realize that, okay, yes, just keep going. And you summed it up like the world doesn't end and it just carries on. Um, but at that point in time, did you kind of like what was your headspace at? Was you like kind of like relishing and embracing this new kind of journey, or was it still very uncertain of like where the hell is this going to go?
Um, I think I was, well, I'll wind back a little bit too, because I think even while I was doing car stuff, I was still a huge, like, I was sci-fi nerd,
Mm-hmm.
spaceships nerd or whatever, StarCraft, video games, blah, blah, blah. And, so I always also had that part of me where I'm like, okay, I want to, if I can't do cars, maybe I can draw spaceships or draw some kind of cool sci-fi vehicles or something like that. So honestly, I was like, okay, it sucks I didn't hit my goal, but maybe this other side could be even more fun, possibly.
Mm.
Let's try it out and see. And so I would say I was like semi optimistic
Mm.
after the fact. Like in the moment, it sucked really bad, but
Mm-hmm.
after when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Maybe the teachers are like trying to save me some trouble. They're like, look at this guy. He doesn't even. I mean, he's drawing too many spaceships in class. Let's just send him on his way and like let him let him loose, set him free.
Yeah.
You know. Um,
Did they ever tell you a reason why they cut? Like, did they give a reason why you were cut, or was it just literally you're cut?
Um, I honestly don't remember the reason, if
Mm,
there was a reason. I think it was just a letter that we
right.
received that just said like, oh, regret to inform you, blah, blah, blah.
And
But,
was that just was that like the course format? Like it was always meant to be like just whittled down to the end, or
yeah, yeah,
was it just their way
that's
of
how
like
it's always
teaching?
been.
Oh, okay.
That's how it's always been because I guess there's just not enough jobs to support all of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
students in that area in Detroit, Michigan, Ohio area, American car makers. So
Mm,
it's an interesting way to do it.
mm,
I yeah, I'm not sure because I don't think Art Center does that or I'm not sure if other schools do it. It's kind of a
mm.
strange thing, but
Yeah, I guess you can kind of see from the other end, where like if you're producing talent, so to speak, and there's many spaces, like eventually you're gonna have to cut things. So I guess from their perspective, kind of makes sense. But yeah, it is very, I guess, like yeah, let's say it's an extreme kind of thing. But as you said, like you don't seem, not saying you were, but bitter about it, because obviously when you get any kind
oh
of
no,
rejection, it could be like, chip on your shoulder and you kind of got it. Like it turns into a revenge mission for the rest of your life. So you never felt that at all.
no, no. I think it's like
Sick.
that is just another step in the journey. It's not a
Yes.
yes, it's so cliche, but sometimes you gotta step backwards and then you can,
Hmm.
or if you're hitting a wall, you gotta like go back and go to the side or, it's part of the process. And that happens in programming a lot too, where I'm like, maybe I'm spending
Mm.
a week trying to fix some stupid thing and I'm like, oh my God, nothing has changed. It's all the same as it was a week ago and I've wasted the entire week.
Yeah.
But no, I've that's part of the process of solving the thing is that wasted week. The wasted week
Mm.
is actually part of it.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
true. That's true.
don't, it's not wasted. Um,
When you were like doing the Mattel stuff, what kind of tools were you using at that time? Was it still like
I
was it
did,
marker and stuff or?
yeah, yeah. I had not, Mattel was the reason why I learned 3D.
Ah.
Because I was drawing everything. I was drawing all the orthographic side
Uh-huh.
view and the top view and the front view of the cars, and we were sending it to an outside modeler agency, and then they would send it back, and then I would have to make notes on it and draw over the model and like ask them to send me screenshots of different views so that I could like, and then that would be like more and more weeks of work just going back and forth with the modeler until and then after that, that's when I decided, okay, I need to learn how to do this because it's taking so much time just going back and forth. Like they can't read my mind, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
apparently not good enough of an artist to directly inject my forms, the ideas into they're not getting it exactly how
Right.
I want it. So the only maybe a more efficient way is if I just try to model it myself, or at least give like a basic model that they can start from for just for proportions and certain details and stuff, and then I can have like little supporting sketches for extra things.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, that's how I was working, basically just pencil and
Wow.
marker, paper.
What 3D package did you use? And did you teach it yourself?
um, okay, well, this so 3D. Oh, I hate it. So the, I think the first 3D I was using was one called
Yeah.
uh, Moto 3D, which was a really great program for modeling, especially super duper intuitive. Um, and then the people at work were using Rhino usually
Mm.
because um, the, these are objects that need to be produced in a factory. So sometimes for that kind of engineering work, they would use programs like Rhino or Alias Studio tools, like car design
Mm-hmm.
places will use that because they have a little bit more stuff for manufacturing, like I guess like draft angle stuff. Actually, no. Wait, no, they were using Rhino for the design model, and then we would send that model to the factory in Malaysia, and then they had engineers over there using some other program that I don't
Okay.
know in order to make the tools to do like the molds,
Yeah.
and they would do the draft angles and stuff in there. But I don't know. I have no idea what that program was that they were using over
And
there.
with Modo, were you was it recommended to you, or did you just pick it up like Google 3D and then that turned up?
Um, okay, so Scott Robertson came to our school in Detroit, and he
Nice,
was
nice.
showing Moto, and I said,
Okay.
"Okay, Scott Robertson, my favorite designer ever. Let's go check out Moto." And I fell in love with it. It was really great. I was using these scripts for it from that were made by a guy named Seneca Menard, and they were awesome scripts. They made Moto like way more intuitive to use.
Hmm.
And that was actually my first time looking at code, I think,
Oh,
because
okay. Sick.
he had the scripts I think were written in Lua or Perl, maybe Perl. I forget which one, but you could go in there and like modify the hotkeys of the script by just changing the text file. So that's what I think got me started like looking at code, or just I was like, oh, I can just modify it like that and it works. Okay, that's cool. And but that was just the start, I guess.
Wow. Where did your career develop from there after Mattel?
Let's see. After Mattel, I I ended up at Disney TV, which was pretty lucky. I was on these blogs pretty actively back then, like Blogspot,
Hmm.
and one of my friends, Anis, was working on this TV show, and he had to leave, and he just emailed me and said, "Hey, do you want to work on this thing?" And this is an internet friend. I'd never met him before in my life. So
Right.
thank you, Anis, for just assuming that I wasn't a axe murderer. And then I went there and interviewed and did that job. So yeah, that was the Tron TV show.
Nice.
And then that was extremely, extremely lucky. I feel almost like guilty talking about this because
Wow.
I got so lucky to work with this team there that was insane. They had like um, Rob Rupel was there, Craig Mullins was working, um, Alberto Mielgo, and uh, Robert Valley. Just like to this day, is probably like the most stacked team I've ever worked
Yeah.
with somehow.
Wow.
Um, and
And were you aware of them at the time?
yes, they were all like my heroes basically. And
Wow.
I was like, huh? Like, how is this happening? And Daniel Simon was there too,
Oh my God.
who's like
Yeah.
one of my car design, because he's the guy
Same.
who I was like, okay, he also went from car design into entertainment doing the Tron movie
Yes.
stuff. So
Yes.
I got to freaking see him and meet him, and he was super cool because I was super duper nervous. I don't remember this first meeting at all, but like they,
Okay.
my director and him tell me that like I was like, oh my god, it's Daniel Simon, and I was like, but he was being super cool and like like trying to make me feel
Yeah.
comfortable and nice,
Nice.
and
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I was so lucky with that. Yeah.
Cosmic Motors is probably the spark that ignited my path into concept art, like 1 billion trillion%. So I
Yeah,
probably would have done way
same.
worse than you, and I don't think Daniel Simon could have probably calmed my nerves down. So fair play. You did a good job in that regard. Um, what was that like? I guess like it's a quite broad question, but you're literally like in a studio, and not just like in a oh, I'm just gonna meet these guys for one day and say you're awesome. It's like you have to work with them. What was your, obviously you got nerves like you mentioned. What was your, like, I guess, approach at that time? Was it like super exciting, or was it like, yo, I better not mess this up at all? Was it dread? What was it like?
Well, okay. After all the initial excitement happened, you're meeting all these people and like, oh my God. Then the director like walks you to your cubicle, right? It's just a
Yeah.
regular plain old cubicle office building. It's not like a magical wonderland or anything. It's everything's gray. And they just sit you down at your table and then I'm like just alone. I'm just there
Mhm.
alone. It's quiet. And I'm like, huh, how the hell did I end up here? This is crazy. And then I just like, on my computer, like, oh, I guess I'll make a little car or bike and blah, blah, blah. And I just, try to get into like kid mode again and just be
Mm,
imaginative and get lost in my own little world. But yeah, they just, you're just left alone and
mm.
you just gotta do what you always do. It's kind of weird because, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird feeling because it's just you expect it to be like, oh, some kind of magical like thing, but it's just you and your computer and your
Yeah.
cubicle doing the same old stuff. But then to see everyone in the office is cool. Like you get all these fun stories. Like, oh shoot, so when Rob Valley was walking down the hall and somebody noticed like a hole in his jacket, they're like, ha. What happened, man? Did somebody stab you? And he's like, yeah.
Oh
Like,
wow.
okay. Or I don't know. And yeah, and then everyone is pretty. Um, I guess the cool thing is that your heroes, some of them can become your friends. It's not
Mm,
always like, oh, never meet your heroes. Sometimes your heroes are cool. So, I'm glad that, I got to work with a lot of them, um, through my whole career, just following them around on different projects and, um, even to different countries, like following them on projects. So, um, and just learning a lot from them, especially Alberto. I feel like I, tried to absorb as much as possible from him because he's sort of like a genius guy, I think,
mhm,
in terms of art. And it's also nice the way he treats the artists too. He's very trusting of people.
mhm,
I think I learned what a good leader should be like. They should be extremely trusting of their people. They should give them space to do their work. Like one funny thing about him is like he'll say, "Don't even show me what you're working on until you're ready to show it."
cool.
Cause, usually it's the opposite. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't care if you're ready. Let me see it.
Yeah.
So, I like his approach a lot. Um, and it's true. Like if you have a good team that you've picked, you should feel confident in leaving them alone to do
Mhm.
whatever they're supposed to do. Um, and then also whenever he gives notes, it's like, God damn it, this is so much better than what I had. And then it's always like a treat to see because you're learning so much every time he changes something on your painting or your design. So yeah.
How many projects have you worked on with Alberto?
Oh, with him, it's been that one, and then the witness, and then the we did some stuff for the Oscars that I don't even know if that came out. It was like
Oh,
little
okay,
blurbs
cool.
for Oscars. And then we did some commercials, and then we did Watch Dogs Legion commercial. That was in Spain. And Spider-Verse, I forgot to mention. And then so yeah, a bunch of stuff with him
Wow.
through the years. So
I guess like kind of going back to Tron a little bit. What would you? Because there's a lot of like beginners that listen to the podcast and those that embark on the journey, and those that are already probably heading into their own equivalent experience of that Tron project of like just getting rusted in, and they've got a bunch of heavyweights in front of them. What would you advise them in that regard, like how to approach it, or what to expect?
Well, I mean, I think if you find yourself there, there's a reason that you're there. You're not there by accident, and
Mm.
just do what you've done your whole life to get, you you continue to treat it like another day, and I think that's the way to not freak out about it too much, maybe, but and try to learn as much, try to absorb, and you know meet everyone and hang. Oh, I mean, you can't just like hover over people's backs while they're working, but like, yeah, anytime I got to spend with, you know, Robert Valley or whatever, and like, I'd be like, oh my God, he's like drawing notes for me. Oh my gosh, can you, can you draw this other thing, and like try to get him to like do as much drawing as possible. I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. Um, uh, but yeah, I don't know. Well, one thing I would say too, in terms of getting into that spot, beforehand, I think the the counterintuitive thing that helped me was that they told me when I interviewed there that the stuff in my portfolio was nice, but there was one project in particular that really caught their eye, which was a totally personal, like, side project thing that I had done of some like cool, futuristic spaceship thing or whatever, 3D
Mm-hmm.
model. And that's the thing that caught their eye. So I don't know if like my regular portfolio would have done the trick. So that's what I always try to emphasize is that, like your side projects sometimes have, more potential than you might think. And if you imagine that you're like a guy or somebody hiring and you're seeing portfolios all day, every day, um, sometimes when something sticks out like a sore thumb, and it looks weird or like what are they? What is this? Then that could catch their eye also, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I mean, you can do things that they expect you to do and like they would want to see in your portfolio, but you can also do things that they maybe are weird that only you are into.
Yeah.
Cause that might be like the little extra spice that they go for,
Mm.
you know? Cause, everybody has their own like little flavor that so try to inject as much of that in as you can. Um, even if it's a whole unrelated thing or like a separate thing,
Mm.
you know?
Another question on Tron. Um, what did you absorb from the rest of your team? Obviously, it's like a loaded question because, like you said, it wasn't like just a quote unquote regular team. Most regular teams are pretty badass anyway. This was like overpowered, like you said. Um, did you? Yeah, I guess like what are the standout things that you kind of gained from each legend that you were working with?
Um, let's see. Well, I would say that everyone is human. Like we're all artists. We all have the same, like, even some of the legends, still have a feeling of like, oh, is this good enough? I'm not
Yeah.
sure, and blah blah blah. So that's that's kind of fun to think about, like Craig Mullins thinking, oh, is this painting good enough? Or, you know, but, yeah. And then, um, it is kind of magical to watch some of them draw though. It's like they're on rails. Or another weird thing that I picked up from, or I was just watching Alberto doing Photoshop one day, and I noticed he didn't use any hotkeys, which kind of blew my mind because I was like, oh, I was totally a hotkey person, and
Yeah.
he was like going over to the undo button and clicking undo,
Okay.
or like going to the eyedropper button and clicking eyedropper. But like he is so fast at it because he has such muscle memory. He's like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like a freaking machine, and his hand was like, and so that was kind of cool. But this could be, just, oh, I wonder if there's something to this just because he's so good. But I actually do question if, like moving your hand to the extremities and like all over the canvas like this, maybe it's like a calibration thing.
Mm.
And maybe it like helps you because you're just moving and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's more movement. Because with the hotkeys, you're just like, like kind of stiff or a little bit stiffer than when you're just, so that's,
Now,
I actually
just to interrupt,
have
just to interrupt
stopped
on that one.
using hotkeys. Yeah. Huh?
That's
Right.
actually a very good point. Last week for my youngest, they had like a little session at the school, and she's at the age now where they're like starting to learn to write. And obviously they have like, their research and their studies and what have you. Growing up, you just got given the tool and then you hopefully figure it out. A bit more sophisticated than that, but that was pretty much it. Nowadays, obviously there's a lot more information. And one of the things they said was work on, like, let the kids do activities that work on their core muscles, things that keep you moving around, because that will help them with the dexterity you need when you're mark making and obviously writing, and because like language itself and letters are like quite intricate, and and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just what you mentioned there about calibration, 1,000,000% there's something in that.
Wait, what do you mean? Core. What other activities do they do for core?
Oh, so sorry, yeah,
Like,
they had like they basically made like a gym outside, like one of those climbing frames and stuff. So they basically said like let the kids be more active and not more like docile and just sitting around, because if their
mhm.
core muscles, like your trunk and everything, if that's
Yeah.
activated and like so quote unquote strong, then you're more likely able to hold a pen and a pencil in a correct manner, in a way that you can have complete control over it. Because
Uh,
actually
yeah.
drawing is an unnatural position for the human body. It's like not technically evolved to do that, like I'm sure like a lot of us, more than 12 hours a day sometimes. So yeah, it just I had to just throw that little anecdote in there.
Oh, wow. I never heard that. Like, yeah, gym is connected to handwriting and draftsmanship. Now that I think of it, are good draftsmen always like fit? Is that part of it?
I get, or they
I
got really
wonder.
bad backs and pelvises and stuff because they're all like hunched over at the desks. I don't know which one I would be, and I definitely wouldn't be the fit one. But yeah, and I think that come
Oh,
hand-eye
wow.
coordination stuff as well. So it could be a lot of waffle, or it could be scientifically accurate. But after in the space of 7 days, I heard that same kind of thing twice. So by my science, it makes sense.
All right. Yeah. Good enough.
um, so now with that said, obviously, like you said, it sounds like it was just like quite cool just watching over everyone's shoulders and seeing them work. Did you find your own approach to creating change? I'm sure it was obviously influenced in certain ways, maybe not. Or did you find that you almost double down more on the way you do things?
Well, I mean, working there definitely influenced my painting for sure.
Mm,
I think I was trying to match the style and I kind of fell in love with it. That flat graphical style. Uh,
mm,
but I mean, so I was doing that for a few years and I still have a bit of it in my like painting DNA, but not as like strictly as before. But yeah, that changed me for sure. The modeling stuff, I guess. Well, the Tron whole aesthetic is super simple and like
mm-hmm.
just very primitive shapes, which I enjoy that style anyway. So I think it fit well. Like that was kind of my comfort zone, and I still like more simple sided designs usually versus like sweeps and angles
Mm-hmm.
and crinkles, and I like just more pure simple forms with proportions and stuff like that. But Um, but for yeah, painting definitely it influenced me a lot. Um, and I still paint partially that way even now. Yeah.
And I guess like so you mentioned from what was your project after Tron? Like did it kind of like steamroll from there? Snowball from there like your career? Like was it just did you
Um,
mainly stay on shows and films from there on in?
um, after that, I worked on a video game called Sunset Overdrive, um, which was an Xbox One launch title by Insomniac Games, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a completely different style. That was all like punk rock and
Mm.
zombies and just totally different, but pretty fun too. Um, that one was crazy because I was basically the only concept art on the. There was one character designer and one like environments and props guy, which was me. So it was like the two of us trying to make this whole new world building situation by ourselves, which was a little crazy, but that one was fun too. And got to do a lot of 3D with like 2D on top of it too. That was kind of like my thing at that point is the paint overs on 3D. Um, so yeah, that was the next one, and then after that was I think Lego. We did a Lego Ninjago movie with Charlie
Ah,
Bean,
cool.
who was the director of Tron Uprising, and yeah, got to do Lego stuff. Uh, and what was after that? My memory is just doo doo. Witness was after that. Yeah, Witness, which was um, that was a pretty fun project because that Witness was kind of like I don't know. Witness was after Spider Verse, but Witness was kind of like an answer to Spider Verse because we had been working on Spider Verse for a long time, and then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden our team kind of got let go in a way, and so Alberto kind of bounced back and assembled this little tiny Witness team
Mm-hmm.
to do the Love, Death, and Robots short, and we basically went all out on the look that we wanted to have for Spider Verse, but on this other other short.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun.
What's it like working on an Alberto project? You touched on it a little bit already, but like give us a bit of a I guess a deep dive ish of is it any different from just a general kind of gig, or is it something? Because there's like, I guess like from an outsider looking in, there's like an aura when you see anything that he's involved in. So I guess like we kind of like maybe project thinking there's some some magical stuff going on or what have you. So I'd love to get an
Yeah.
insider take on it.
Well, Witness definitely is more scrappy because it's a smaller team and less money, but as compared to like a movie like say Lego, where it's very comfortable,
Mm,
everyone has plenty of time to do things, and but yeah, when you're doing something a little more on the indie side, it's exciting because everything is urgent and has to get done right now with the resources that we have, and so you have to be a little creative and sometimes like yeah, you just have to work around your limitations.
mm,
um and and you see it happen with regular directors too. Sometimes when they have too many resources, too much time,
mm-hmm,
then they can tend to go in circles because they start to
mm,
become undecided or unsure of their direction. And that is super duper dangerous and frustrating for everybody involved. Like if you're rewriting things and then all the storyboarders have to redo their work and then the designers have to redo, everybody has to redo everything. So it's no fun. So I kind of like tiny, tiny small projects that don't have a lot of, extra time. It
mm,
makes you more decisive. he's very decisive, thankfully. Alberto is, but so if he's in charge of the project, I have like full faith in him to kind of steer things in a strong direction and have a vision and just, go through with it. Which is actually a very uncommon thing. It's hard to do that, I think, normally.
Hmm.
And it's also good because he writes and he does storyboards too, so he's got it all like it's all very clear in there.
Sick.
Um, but yeah, he's very like no BS. Um, but also at the same time, like I said, very trusting. So
Hmm.
he expects you to have no BS, and he has
Hmm.
no BS. So he'll like let you know something if he doesn't like something, or if he does something. If he likes something, he's very expressive about it too. He'll like be like, "Oh my god," blah blah blah. He's pretty funny guy. He's really funny. But yeah. Anyway.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That'll be the tagline for the episode. Um,
Maybe
Obviously, we
we can
touched
cut that
upon
out.
we touched upon early on regarding like personal projects. One of the things I've always remembered you for is your ship designs. Like that's one of the things I like doing, and obviously I was very much drawn to that mainly because the original forms, original shapes, strong language, and it just had a lot of character. Obviously, you also mentioned as well like the importance of the side projects and doing your own thing and how that can lead to new opportunities. What is your relationship like with personal projects and side projects? It seems like it's something that's very much you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in side projects, as you can tell. Like my whole life has become into a side project,
Right. Okay.
basically. um, I, I mean, I don't know where I get it from.
Hmm.
I've always had like this kind of do my own thing spirit. It could be because I'm only child also. People
Right.
have told me that like we'll be walking around with a group of friends and I'll just like go wander off into the corner
Okay.
somewhere and like they'll lose me. So I think that's what happens naturally for me is like I like to just go off into the forest and whatever. And people are like, okay, let's just let him leave him alone. So that's my thing. I like to figure things out on my own. I have this natural tendency to like whatever everyone says to do, I like to do the opposite thing,
Right. Right. Right.
I'm sort of
Is that in a
this,
rebellious way or a curiosity way?
a curiosity way. I'm like,
Right.
it's more like, oh, I want to see, everybody says this, but I wonder if this other way could be
Yeah.
better, maybe. Let's experiment and try. And then if it is, then I can go back and then like report my findings, but probably people will hate me because they're like, shut up, just do what you're supposed to do, you know? Um, but yeah, I've never been like, I don't think I've ever been a popular kind of a person, like I'll do things, um, that maybe hurt my popularity if I'm curious about it, sometimes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that bother you or not?
No, it's fine. I'm used to it.
Sick.
Normal. Yeah.
Earlier on, we was talking about heavy paint. You mentioned that's the longest thing that you've spent time on. Just give me a short list of the things that you have worked on and these little projects and endeavors that are maybe still cooking or are long extinct, but still hold
Let's
a
see.
close place in your heart.
I went through okay, my friend Kirk, who does figure drawing, he used to hold figure drawing at Art Center. He's like, "Oh, Vaughn, let's make a hover bike project, a model kit, resin like
Yes.
plastic kit, physical." And I was like, "What? Really? Okay." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna sculpt. He'll sculpt the figure. It's gonna be this like cool Japanese like '80s anime girl with a cool helmet and a hover bike, retro cafe racer hover bike." We're like, okay, cool. Like we could do the design and the the molds in probably like, yeah, probably by Christmas, maybe 2 months, right? And of course that turned into a 2 year long project of like me going to his house every night after work and staying until like 2 or 3 a.m. doing this stupid thing. And, like building our own 3D printers to be able to print stuff in
Yeah.
resin and like, so that was definitely a project. Yeah, a few little toy related projects like 3D printed bunny robot mech things and posters and prints of sci-fi stuff. And yeah, I had a long phase where I was trying to make little spaceship drawings too, like on index cards, little,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
6x4s, and almost got to 100, but I don't think I made it. That's one of my regrets is I should have finished that and made a book or something out of it,
Yeah.
but it's just sitting in my drawer now. There's like 80 or 90 of them. Need to finish that. Um,
Yeah, like what's the graveyard look like? Like, do you have like a Vaughan museum, or are they all like just covered in dust and neglected?
yeah, I just have it in my cabinet. I have a
Right.
drawer full of, random bullshit stuff and my old hard drives, and most of it is on my hard drives, I guess.
Cool.
So, yeah.
What made you want to make your own 3D printer rather than just get one?
Um, I wanted a resin printer in particular,
Okay.
which is a different style than the typical one with a nozzle. So the resin printer, if anyone doesn't know, it's like it's more like photography, where you have a liquid and then you expose the liquid to a light source, and that will create a reaction, a
Ah,
chemical reaction, to solidify the plastic at that light point. So it's like a black and white light mask. And they used to have those printers at school, in the shop, and then I looked it up, and they're like $100,000. So
fair
I was
enough.
like,
Okay.
okay, let me see if I can make one, and then we ended up making one. But then,
Wow.
yeah, it had a lot of problems though. It was like definitely not perfect. It was actually made out of like a 2x4 piece of wood, and like it was super super janky, but it did work partially. Um, but I
That's
think it was more trouble than it was worth. My friend ended up just buying an actual one, and then we did it with
right.
that in the end.
Are you familiar with Wallace and Gromit? It's like a stop
Oh
motion
yeah, yeah, yeah,
animation thing. Yeah, it just sounds like one of
yeah.
their inventions, which is actually a compliment. That sounds cool, man.
Oh yeah, I love Wallace and Gromit. Um,
Um, so one of the cool things I remember about yourself as well, like you were one of the, at least from what I saw, one of the first people that was like, I guess like, not like intentionally, but like an advocate for Blender, like before it even became like, I guess, um, easy for people to understand, like with the interface and stuff.
Industry standard.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. Where did the Blender journey come from? Because I just remember like some of your streams where you just like, obviously you had like I think your own specific like I guess build or configuration of Blender. I remember looking and thinking this looks super cool, but I could not fathom using this. What made you get into Blender at a time when no one, like you said, industry standard?
Well, I will credit that to the guys I met in Croatia. I went to Croatia for a workshop called IFCC
Mm-hmm.
in 2013, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, 2013 or 14. And all the guys there in Europe were like, bro, you have to see Blender. It's like, it's open source. It's free. It's so cool. I was like, if it's free, it must suck, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever. Just leave me alone. I'm using Moto. Moto is the best at that time. And so I just basically, I was like, okay, whatever. Um, but then, eventually they kind of wore me down on it, and I saw the work that they were doing with it, and I was like, okay, this looks pretty serious. Let's give it a shot. And then I tried it, and then the interface was really wonky and weird, and I was like, oh, okay, this is too weird for me. I'm going back to Moto.
Yeah.
So then fast forward a few more years, I think it was actually Spider-Verse project, where we needed to render an interior of this like super collider um, apparatus thing, and it was taking forever to render in Moto. So I was looking online for fast renderers that could use the graphics card, the video cards, which was kind of a novel thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, everything uses video GPUs, but so I found that, oh yeah, Blender has GPU rendering. It's free. Okay, let me try importing my Modo model into Blender to render it. And then I was like, oh yeah, it is actually pretty fast. So I ended up going back and forth between Modo and Blender over and over, like trying to tweak things on the model and then send it back in and back and forth. And I was like, you know what? This is too painful. So I was like, how do I move the polygon over here in Blender? And then, and then I just started running into all these super annoying things in Blender. Like I would try to delete an object or something, and then this pop-up would come up every single time that said, are you sure you want to delete this thing? And it's like, yes, I want to delete the fuck after the billionth time. I want to delete the thing. Like I've never seen that in any other modeling program. You're deleting things like a million times every day. Of course I want to delete the thing. Um, so then I tried to figure out, okay, how do I make scripts that allow me to skip the stupid delete dialog pop up? And then like, oh, how do I make it so that I can select things that go through to the other side, like in X-ray view? Because that's something that Modo did by default. When you make a selection, it would select through the entire object, the front side and the back side.
Yes.
Whereas with Blender, it would only select the front side. I'm like, what the, how do I need to grab the whole thing, please, please just let me grab the, and so I had to make a bunch of scripts to like work around for that. And then, that's how I got into Blender basically, because of the rendering.
Wow.
That's what attracted me to it.
And is that your go-to now?
I don't do any modeling now. I'm just working on this thing.
Do you remember the last time you booted it up and modeled something?
Probably like last year.
Sick.
Oh, yeah. Are you using it a lot?
Oh yeah, it's my industry standard now. It's
Nice.
like 1,000,000%. It's people like yourself. I know Jammer did a big thing as well with that. Was kind of like, okay, cool. Now it's like it makes sense. And obviously, when you like look at your, I'm one of the people that the fools that pay for subscriptions, and like realizing that the bill's quite high with that kind of stuff, and like this is like absolutely free, and even with a few plugins, it's like still way cheaper than buying something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, little things like that you mentioned, like, you know, like selecting things through and that kind of stuff, like it still bothers me. However, it's from what I see now, very few people don't not use it. Like it's, you still see people that like that own certain things. I Polywise grew up or cut my teeth on Maya, so I still like, that's my gateway drug. That's the one that I'm still very fond of because I'm just spent so many hours just like trying to figure it out. So I've still got that like baked into me, muscle memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blender, but still, I don't know. I don't think they're going like too deep into it. Like I don't know every single corner. I just use the things that I need to use, and then I'm out of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because of like, it's almost like you've gone full circle, right? Like you've gone the basically just customize Blender to how you want to, and now it's on the painting side. And it's interesting that you mentioned earlier on as well, like it's kind of like, you know, from different points to different points as well. What do you think your next point will be? Do you think it will shift, or is it kind of like gone into a straight line?
I honestly have no idea.
Nice.
I think it might be fun to try to make a game at some point. I know a lot of people, that seems like a natural progression from this, because then you could do like, you could do your art for the game and do some programming for the game. I know a few people who are, you know, kind of artist / engineer type people, and it seems like a good fit, a nice next project someday. But for now, in the near term, I would like to get more into painting, actually.
Nice.
Because I've been, you know, in the weeds with this programming stuff, and I actually do really love painting. So I want to get back into the practice of it just because it's fun, and I miss it, and I want to improve at it. So that's my goal for, you know, near term, more painting.
And I guess when you look at it like from, you know, like I guess like a satellite view, when you look at art, it's like people that create things. But when you look at it like, you know, in the different segments, like each one gives a different thing. Like you've just shown, like even developing the tool that helps you make art is like an art form unto itself. The 3D side and all the other things. What is it about painting that gives you whatever it gives you that nothing else can give?
Well, it's kind of a fun little process of discovery. It's also a bit tedious, a pain in the ass. It's a bit meditative. It's a
Mm.
bit frustrating. But then, at the end, whatever you're doing, if you spend a lot of time on it, and then at the end you get that little rush of excitement. That's the little thing that's the cherry on top after all well, I guess just being sucked into anything is the main benefit, I guess. Whether it's programming or painting, you're just like completely absorbed into the thing. I think that's what people like to do. We want to be like completely involved in something. That's what fun is, I guess,
Mm.
and focus and flow and all that. I find the same fun in programming too. You just completely forget about everything else and get lost. So trying to maximize that amount of getting lost is the goal for me.
Vaughan, it's time to wrap up, sadly. It's been amazing chatting with you. And before we head off, any, I guess, final words, statements, or things you'd like to share before we head off?
Um, yeah, I don't know. This is a nice talk. It's fun to reconnect, I guess, after all of that initial workshops was a while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having me on. I don't really have anything much to say.
Awesome.
Visit Heavy Paint if you want
Of course.
and try it out. But yeah, thanks for talking, and it was fun.
Awesome, Vaughan. Thanks so much. A massive thanks to Vaughan for that incredible conversation. Hit the links to check out Heavy Paint and for what Vaughan is up to. Then, when you're done, head to learnsquare.com to check out your next game-changing course to help your career. All of our first lessons are free. I've been your host, Darren Danda. Till next time.